I don't have to tell you things are bad. Everybody knows things are bad. It's a depression. Everybody's out of work or scared of losing their job. The dollar buys a nickel's worth. Banks are going bust. Shopkeepers keep a gun under the counter. Punks are running wild in the street, and there's nobody anywhere who seems to know what to do, and there's no end to it. We know things are bad, worse than bad. They're crazy. The air is unfit to breathe, and our food is unfit to eat. I don't want you to protest. I don't want you to riot. I don't want you to write to your congressman because I wouldn't know what to tell you to write. I don't know what to do about the depression and the inflation and the Russians and the crying in the street. All I know is that first, you've got to get mad. You've got to say, I'm a human being. My life has value.
You're listening to Toward Anarchy on the Republic Broadcasting Network. Here's your host, Michael Storm.
Welcome to Toward Anarchy. Thank you so much for joining me. Of course, I am your host, Michael Storm, and as always, it is a pleasure to come hang out with you, share this time with you. I really appreciate the fact that you do it. If you're here for the first time, welcome. If you're coming back, welcome back. And there's plenty to talk about. I have a great conversation for you, and we will get right into that in just a moment. But first, I want you to take a moment to click that like button wherever you're finding me at. It doesn't matter. Click that like button, tap it, smash it, lock it in the shackles, and throw tomatoes at it if you must. But do it. Click that like button. Do it now, because by the time you get into it, you will be enjoying the conversation and you will forget. And then we will miss out and we won't know that you were there. Subscribe, follow along at Toward Anarchy on Facebook, X, Instagram, YouTube. If it isn't at Toward Anarchy, it's probably not me. That's pretty much the best way to look at it. Of course, if you're ever in Topeka, Kansas, drop by the comic book shop, Amazing Fantasies, and say hi. Be nice. TowardAnarchy.com to follow along. Everything I do is always there. That includes this show. Havok and LX are just a couple of good fellows, and they like to chat about topics big and small, a lot like myself, and some sin in a former life or their current life has brought them here to chat with me today. SpaceTomatoes.net is where you can find them, at SpaceTomatoes-podcast on YouTube, at Space Tomatoes PC on X, and of course all of those links at TowardAnarchy.com, episode 2629. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me. It's good to see your smiling faces again. You look well. Appreciate you taking the time. I think everything is going really well here. It's nice. Every once in a while, stuff just works. I haven't been feeling. It happens to me this time every year for some reason. I don't know what it's about, but I guess it's just summer. Kids out of school, that sort of thing. Other stuff going on. Putting in more hours at the comic book shop, I think, than I do during the winter. I let the show kind of go a little bit. I kind of turn off everything. And so I don't even know if I know what's going on in the world. I don't know if I'm going to be able to keep up with you guys.
I think you'll do just fine. And thanks for having us on. I appreciate it.
Probably know more than I know what's going on. I can give you that much.
I totally appreciate you guys coming and hanging out. We had such a great conversation when you invited me to be on your show, Space Tomatoes, and I really enjoyed chatting with you. And as always, it doesn't matter how long we do any of these things. There's always time. We could keep going forever and ever, and there's always another conversation, and never want to leave any stone unturned, and we don't have the kind of time for that. So we're just going to talk about what we can talk about. And it's funny, I just thought of a thing that I've never done before, but I'm going to do it today just because I think I'm going to do it from now on, and I'm going to start. Because I never plan any questions. I just come and chat. I might have a general idea of something that I might ask depending on who the person is I'm chatting with. But I don't have any sort of canned questions or anything that I ask. And so I think I want to ask this from now on. I'll test it on you guys. I want to do it every time from now on. First question out the gate with a guest, icebreaker, I want to know, LX, start with you. Who's your favorite superhero and why?
Who is my favorite superhero? Oh boy. That's a good question. Let's see. Wolverine, maybe. I guess. I'm not a huge superhero guy, but I like him.
I don't think that everybody will be when I ask. I know there's going to be a lot of people that are like, I don't really watch superhero movies, but everybody knows somebody. Everybody knows a Spider-Man or something like that. So Wolverine, definitely acceptable. At the top of the charts for me too, as well. One of my favorites. All right, Havoc, how about you?
Oh, it's an easy one, man. From childhood days, it's Banff. Nightcrawler,
Oh,
same series, the X-Men. Just
that's right.
always been my favorite superhero. I don't even, I don't know that I could articulate why. I just always loved him.
Yeah. Okay. So that actually does ring that brings it back. We did get that in the conversation a little bit, didn't we?
We
Somehow
did.
it came up that Nightcrawler was your favorite. That's cool. I like Nightcrawler. I like the X-Men. Are you watching X-Men '97? Have you watched that?
No, I kind of bowed out of a lot of it just because, I think certain organizations have kind of decimated those verses for me. It's just, it's graphically enjoyable. It's fun to watch. It's a good time suck, but it doesn't feel the same to me, I guess. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? It feels altered, unpure, a little too markety, and a bit too nice, honestly. Just a bit too nice. Yeah.
Interesting.
I
All right,
have to
have
change
you
my
seen it,
answer.
Alex?
I have to change my answer.
Okay. All right. Cool.
I don't know. I mean, you caught me off guard a little bit. I wasn't expecting
No,
it.
good. I'm glad. Gave you time to think about it.
I want to have to say Spider-Man.
Okay.
So, like, all since I was a little kid, I showed Havoc. I actually still have my original Spider-Man plastic wallet that our house is broken into. I was like 3 or 4 years old, and they stole all the change out of my plastic Spider-Man wallet, but they left that at least for me. So, and then I would, I'm watching the like Spider-Man on Electric Company. I don't know if you remember that show, but then I used to go around, you're doing this stuff to everybody, pretend webbing everybody up.
I think that's actually a very appropriate answer because personally, I as somebody who's obviously still connected to the whole superhero world, the whole Spider-Man thing is something I left behind kind of with my youth because it is a youth thing, and so that makes perfect sense that as as a child, as coming up, that's going to be your thing. Definitely a spider. Yeah, that makes perfect sense because and it's interesting because if that's the kind of character, if you liked Spider-Man back then and you're not necessarily you haven't been into comic books over the years and you come in now, I'm going to point you to older Spider-Man. I'm going to point you to Peter Parker as an adult who's dealing with superhero stuff, but he's also dealing with sort of life things. He's married to Mary Jane and has kids, and they're superheroes too sometimes, depending on the storyline. So yeah, that's cool. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes perfect sense. Have you seen the X-Men '97? Then no, probably not. Then
What platform is that on?
Disney. Disney
Oh,
owns
okay.
everything.
Yeah, I don't have that channel, so no, I wouldn't have seen it.
Yeah.
You don't
And
wanna
I don't know
fund-
if it'll ever get anywhere else.
You don't want to subscribe to Disney? Fund
No.
their enterprise?
I don't want to subscribe to anything, but
Yeah,
that's besides the point. Is that like a continuation of the '90s cartoon or something?
Mm-hmm.
It is. All right. So I mean, I did watch that back in the day.
That's where I was going with is that it is actually a continuation, and so that was what was wondering if there is a difference in feel but if you haven't seen it yet, you won't know. I'm one of those people that I'm insistent upon not having any prejudgment about it, knowing full well going in, whatever movie it is, or comic book, or Disney Plus show, or Max show, or whatever it is, that they didn't make it for me, so it's probably not going to be what I want it to be necessary, so I just don't go in with any expectations. I stay away from all the spoilers, anything like that, so I can just try to enjoy it, and so that I don't end up like you're saying there, Hammock, is really I don't want it to not be interesting anymore, and I think that a lot of that comes from one thing. Obviously, is the destruction of the properties, right, and Disney's inability to really manage these things in any sense at all. Positively, they have
Yeah, I
to
mean,
whatever
look,
agenda. There's a million different problems with it, and
yeah,
and that and that is the problem with it. And but if you're the other thing would be just getting older and just having different values and different things that you're doing in your life, and no longer having that same draw, that same interest. Maybe you found new books, new stories, new characters, other things to move along to.
I feel like there's a big miss there, right? There's decades of material, and it's just kind of left by the wayside. And it's like those are, I think those are without question worthy of being screen adaptations. But it's always a new story, and it's got to install into the story some you know social trend, etc., and it's got to be like blatant and in your face, and it detracts from, I think, the magic, the mystery of the superhero, of the verses. It's like there's something there that's this, it's superheroes, man, come on, and they're not all nice, and they're not all in the camp of be nice to everybody, and some of them are downright dastardly. and that's the good stuff. That's the stuff that made that stuff, I think, more relatable for me, at least.
Maybe Disney will do just as good a job with the X-Men as they did with Star Wars. I mean, they did a great job with those.
Okay, absolutely, point understood, and they have. I'll tell you, those things. There's a disconnect between the movies and the comic books, of course. It may not be obvious to some people, but it is obvious when you stop and think about it. The same people who watch movies aren't the same people who buy comic books, whereas the same people who buy the comic books are going to go see the movies most likely. So all those movies, everything that Disney has done, it really hasn't done anything for the comic book industry as far as that goes. It's done great for them and their industry. And after, I guess, Spider-Man here this last weekend, they're at the top of their game again for Marvel after some. So it seemingly, anyway, it opened real big, I guess.
Yeah, I would imagine so. I mean, they still have quite a big fan following, and I mean, you look at it from the perspective of someone teen or lower age. It's exciting stuff. The visuals, the graphics, the action, the storyline, the plot is all easy to follow usually, and not super complex. So you've got the components that make it up. Just for me, it's just what I said, right? It isn't what the comic books or even the original adaptations of some of these were.
I'm sure I'll see the movie at some point when it maybe comes on Prime or something. I'm just not a real big
Right.
going to the movies kind of guy, but I just saw the last Spider-Man recently, the No Way Home or something. Is that what I enjoyed it. It wasn't bad, but I'm not a real huge movie person. But
No, not movies. Obviously, the games. Obviously.
yeah, well, I'm sorry to break it to anybody. I don't want to have any spoilers here, but if you're getting into Nintendo collecting with the intent to get play X-Men games or Spider-Man games, they're all pretty much garbage. So don't waste your time.
They're all pretty much the same thing. They're all not great.
No, they're horrible.
There's a X-Men. There is one X-Men game on one of the Nintendo platforms.
The Genesis one might not have been that bad, but they're all kind of meh.
Genesis one. There was a Wolverine. game. There was a couple, but most of them are pretty bad. Most of
Yeah.
them are pretty bad.
All
But what are you
the
going to do?
Nintendo
They're
ones
just
are.
punchers. They didn't do story back then, really.
That's true.
Yeah, I mean, they tried, but it was very linear, wasn't it? Just like the games, right? Left to right.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
How many games you got?
I don't even 600 something. I mean, it's close to being all of them. Not the really super expensive ones. I mean, there's a couple expensive ones on there, but I never paid that much for them, and I kind of got pushed out of the collecting hobby. I mean, I stopped probably 20 years ago because I like going to yard sales and I'd pay a quarter or $1 a piece for them, and now they're just ridiculous. You can't even hardly touch them.
Yeah. You know what I saw the other day? I was at the grocery store and I looked over. This was amazing to me. There was a vending machine there. And I'm like, what is that big red and white thing on the top? And I'm like, oh, that's one of those Pokemon things. They had a Pokemon vending machine at the grocery store. I'm like, well, that's pretty weird. I mean, it just seems odd that it's okay.
The only reason I know those exist is because I've seen videos of people like fighting at them.
There it is.
Who can get there first?
Yeah.
And empty out some, like they're empty within 10 minutes or something.
Yeah, the fear of missing out, the FOMO, and the speculation on these things has blown up over the last year and a half or so, 2 years, something like that. It's actually had a pretty good run. It's pretty crazy. In fact, the Nintendo Corporation just, I don't know, 2 weeks ago, something like that, less than a month ago, they had their big annual meeting, and somebody stood up and said, what are you going to do about this Pokemon thing? Because obviously Nintendo, Pokemon Corporation, all that, they're all tied together, all come out of the same space. And Nintendo owned Pokemon, still owns Pokemon. I don't know if it's still that direct or if it's really just its own company anymore. But at any rate, they have what you're talking about. It's crazy. Trust me, I wrap up a lot of my videos where I mention anything about Pokemon by saying, I don't have enough of it for you to make it worth driving a truck through my store, because stuff like that is happening and people are holding stores up at gunpoint. And it's all about the speculative buying. It's gambling. There is a platform called Whatnot. You may have heard it. That is now, well, it's basically just people gambling, and they're sort of doing pack openings. I'm about to do one, but I don't do gambling. I do it for myself. I got a box of the new Star Wars Unlimited new card game. It's pretty big around here. We play every Friday in the store here, and of course it's collectible. And but they'll open these, open a box or they'll open a pack or something, and somebody watching on this Whatnot will buy what they're selling, or they'll buy it in advance. They'll buy it before it's opened, and they'll pay ridiculous prices for it because they can't get it where they're at. They'll pay 3 or 4 times or 5 times market prices, and it's unfortunate because they are going to address it. They're going to do something about it, and by they I mean the corporation. And you know what that means? That means they're going to screw up the market. Because what they're experiencing is supply and demand, right? There's not enough supply and there's a bigger demand. It doesn't matter what's driving the demand. It doesn't matter if the demand is artificial. The demand exists, and until the whatever artificial ideas or whatever is pumping it up, that demand exists. And so the only thing that they can do is either print more than they can sell, which would drive them out of business. That would be stupid. Or they can print less, which is the same problem. There's not enough to go around already, so it doesn't make any more sense to print less. Or they're going to manipulate more than they already do how it's distributed. And so they're going to screw up yet again their market. It's a long. I don't even want to go into it because there's so much to it that we dealing with it in the store for years now, having been a main local distributor for Pokemon. We have a professor, we have people playing in the store, kids collecting and trading. a big place for it. And then one day they took it all away from us, and then all this stuff happened because they started selling into Walmart, and then all this started where people are beating each other up to try to get to the product. And Magic did it at the same time, and they really screwed over stores of our size, where we sell plenty of the product. It's worth it for us to buy it and invest in it when they release new product, and to carry it in the store. And now and then it's not. But then they had all these problems, and now they're coming back to us. They're begging us to have it in the store again, and that's just it's scratching the surface of that long story.
Well, you know what they
it's
need
wild.
to do? What they need to do is, I hear there's a gentleman that's probably open to consulting gigs now, and he's a master at doing this type of stuff. I'm not saying it turns out well, but definitely a master. I hear Jerome Powell is no longer in a position, so he's really good at doing exactly what you just described. It's different, cards, paper, whatever, but same concept.
But the market forces are the same. That's what you're getting. That's why I love to talk about the market for comic books and for collectibles, because it is a very unique and different market, and it reflects a market that an emerging market that people are still trying to understand, which is digital collectibles, Bitcoin, stuff like that. So there's that mirror of how they work in the marketplace, and how the values are arrived at ultimately. Excuse me.
Now, I do have a question for you. Has anything that's ever been created like explicitly to be collectible ever actually became collectible? Like I remember, like many years ago, they had the Beanie Baby thing, and everybody was buying those things, thinking they're going to retire on them, and now they're essentially worthless. Most of them, I guess. I'm not an expert or anything, but most of the stuff that gets value is stuff that maybe they made and never thought it was going to become is what it did, and then the scarcity of it is what makes it valuable.
Yeah, well, that's part of that figuring out the economics of collectibles, right? Because they do exist in such a strange place. It's entirely driven by people's opinions of things, and that includes the value of them, but it also includes of the thing themselves. And so you can have very rare collectible things that nobody wants. That happens all the time. Archie comics are a really good example of that. Anything, the sort of Dell and Gold Key, there's Disney, stuff like that, Warner Brothers, Bugs Bunny, because nobody really reads comic books anyway. Nobody ever really did read those necessarily, except when they were the only things that were available. Superheroes took over, knocked everything else out. Everything else became secondary. Horror, all of it became secondary to superheroes, because superheroes were just more digestible, I guess. But there's these weird spaces out there. These economic things exist, and the ability of somebody to print something with the intention, make something, create something with the intention of keeping it short run and collectible automatically drives up the value of it to begin with, so it limits the number of people who can get it. And if it's not Superman, or if it's not Spider-Man, not Batman, or something like that, then you're already on a lower tier of what it is in terms of who's after it, and or cards. As far as that goes, you get Magic the Gathering and you get Pokemon right up there at the top, and the two always battling back and forth. But there's One Piece, and there's Gundam, and there's all these other card games out there. There's Star Wars. They try to take a chunk of it, and so it works. It's exactly the same on the collectible devices, the Bitcoin and things like that too. They've set out to create scarcity in Bitcoin, and they have done so, but it's become a collectible in that sense, and there's only just so many people that want it, and so its volatility is just that it's off the scale. It's just ridiculous the way it swings in terms of value. Actually, comic books are much more stable investment than something like a Bitcoin seems to be in terms of the long-term evaluation of it. And so let me directly answer the question with an example in comic books. So we do it we talk about it all the time, creating something on purpose with the idea that it's going to be collectible, knowing that it's the first appearance of a character or something like that, and it's the first time they're going to be in a comic book, and they know that or they assume, they hope, they pray, they have a pretty good idea that it's going to be big, and so they print a lot of them. Most comic books probably barely get into the sort of five figures. It's thousands and then tens of thousands, and then your biggest books, except for some anomalies, 250,000 print run. But at the height of these kinds of things, 3 million books, a million, 3 million. Couple of examples recently. One right here, Absolute Batman #1. It's only 2 years old, and that cover right there is a $400 book, and there are millions of them. They're everywhere, but the demand is so high for it. The books printed in the 90s, a lot of them. Venom is a really good example. It's Amazing Spider-Man #300. It's a super famous book. You might even know it if you saw it, actually. And that's where Venom makes his big appearance. And he has for years had just this little bit of value, and then bigger and bigger and bigger, and now it's worth a lot of money in really, really good condition, because there's like 3 million copies of it out there, and there's probably not 3 million people that necessarily want that comic book. So yeah, it's got to be really good. They got to get lucky. You can't do it. You can't plan on it, because, as I say, if you underprint it, you short the market the number that it needs, and that drives the print. That drives the value up to begin with. If you're going to underprint it, you normally print X number of whatever it is, and you expect a relative return on that, and that's issue after issue, release after release. Whereas this one, you decide, oh, we're going to print twice as many, or we're going to print half as many. Well, you have to adjust for that as well, and you have to adjust for it in price. Well, if we're going to release this at half as many of them, we're going to have to jump the price up twice as high, and they do. they do.
Yeah.
How about something like that? That when like Superman dies, the back of the '90s. I remember seeing that on the news. Like that was everywhere, and we didn't have the internet, obviously, but everybody knew about that. And I think they were standing in line. The news showing them. And is that anything now or no?
Yeah, in fact, I had somebody ask me about it earlier today. Believe it or not, it's funny. They specifically asked about the 30th anniversary of it, because the 30th anniversary just happened, I don't know, 2 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah, it's been that long ago. Yeah, welcome. It's a perfect example. At the time, obviously, everybody wanted one, so market value shoots up. Over the years, you could pick one up anywhere, anytime, multiple printings of it, whatever. Aside from the super rare platinum bagged one with the armband and all that stuff, that one's always retained a decent value. But just sort of the regular, anybody could go pick it up off the newsstand, didn't have any value. And now, within the last couple of years, all of those books, even the overprinted ones, they have some value again. And I hate to say it, it's not so much the books as it is the economy.
Yeah, that is that's got to hit the industry pretty hard, right? Because this is certainly one of those, whatever you want to call them, kind of. I hate to use the term luxury, but kind of a luxury spend item. You know what I mean? Especially when things are tough. Do I pay the electric bill, or do I get this comic that I really wanted? Yeah, it's probably a bad example, but still, yeah.
No, it's really not. It's actually a really good example. You're absolutely right, because it is a luxury item. Nobody needs comic books. People want comic books. People need to read. People need to find interests in the world that will keep their attention, that will get them to read. But they don't necessarily need to read comic books. It's definitely a luxury item. That's why we do the best that we can to make it accessible and cheap. We try to sell as many comic books as we can for $2 a piece, and it's really hard to make money at $2 a piece.
I can imagine.
I mean, especially with inflation. Like, I mean, I know it's not really related to comics, but like we used to be able to buy junk pickup trucks for $200, $300, $400, and now for a junk pickup truck, if it runs, it's minimally like $2,500, $3,000 or more. It's ridiculous to me. So,
well, Obama was partly responsible for that, right? With the big buyback thing, where a whole bunch of old vehicles were destroyed.
Yeah. We lost a lot of decent secondhand vehicles during that.
Yeah,
and it was sinister what they made him do. They made him pour this like liquid glass stuff into the engine, so you can't even use any parts. It destroyed the engine internally, completely seized it.
Yeah, one of the requirements for that was it had to be destroyed. It couldn't just be like sold to a scrapyard for parts. It had to be physically destroyed, which is the sad part, you know. And
I did not know that.
Yeah, it was this liquid that you poured in the engine, and you had to run it at like red line for like 20 minutes, and it turned from a liquid into like a literal glass, and it seized up the entire engine. It would just come screeching to a halt. That's it. You can't even use any parts out of it.
That is disgusting. What a horrible thing. I knew that thing was bad. I knew the second it was announced it was bad. I just understanding the basic economics of it, that you're taking all of these secondary market vehicles off the market. So all these people like myself, I could afford a new vehicle if I had to go and buy one, but I won't. I don't want to. It doesn't make any sense to. There are too many used other, there's too many other ways to get a vehicle without making that huge investment of a monthly payment and the insurance and all that. So it doesn't even make any sense. But they take them away from people. But worse than that, being somebody who can go get one if he needs one, but all the people that can't, for one, but like students and young drivers, people first setting out, and you know what that's about. Now, and I'm sure Alex Jones did then, that's all about an agenda, right, to get us off the road.
Yeah, it makes me sad. On Facebook, I'm in some groups, and somebody will post up like looking for a reliable starter vehicle for my kid. $2,500 budget, and all they get is laughy faces. And comments like that doesn't exist.
And I mean and it's had a ripple effect as well, right? I mean, you now see a major company that stopped producing high quality good parts at reasonable prices, right? I believe Fram is no longer selling these parts, and everybody knows Fram, right? So, it seems like a concerted effort to remove the ability to repair older vehicles. Now, you could look at some current events and probably connect some dots pretty easily. Like, nobody's going to retrofit their old vehicle with a new computer module that'll scan your face and, let people know what you're, talking about through lip reading AI and crap like that. So,
don't we have a kill switch thing coming in next year, like a mandate?
No, it's here. Yeah, it's here
for like 27 models or something.
Yep. Well, the 27 models are out now.
Oh, they are already?
Yeah.
And that's true. Like, I mean, I saw the Halloween stuff at the pet store the other day. I'm like, what? Dude,
yeah, about June or so, maybe a little bit before that, the 27 models will hit the floor.
Nice.
Yeah. So
can't get any cheaper either.
Well, I mean, all the electronics,
all the extra crap. I don't want it, man. I would love to buy a new pickup with like roll up windows and like a bench seat, stick shift, steel wheel. That's my thing.
No backup cameras. No
backup cameras.
No this, no that. Just give me something with like, old AM, FM radio with a CD player and,
CD player, dude. I want a cassette player. 8-track. I'll take an 8-track. I don't own
have
one, but
any of those. And you want to talk about trying to find a hard to find collectible right there, man. And
how come eight
mine are
track hasn't had its
glazed.
day yet? Vinyl made a comeback. Nobody wants 8 tracks for some reason.
You know, it was great quality sound. And I mean, dude, when they came, the fact that you could switch a track just by pushing a button, holy mackerel. Dude.
There's
That
no
was
rewind though. That's the bad.
technologica.
Dude, I don't know. You guys remember those you can get like 10 for a penny Columbia House things? And you'd have to like tape the penny to the little card and send it back, and you could pick from like album or 8-track or cassette.
Yep.
I barely remember when they had the 8 tracks, but I do.
I do. I wonder how many people still owe them money.
I'm sure I do. I'm sure I do.
Probably do
Because,
too.
I started back in tapes and kept going through CDs. I did my best. I paid a lot of those. I completed the on more than one occasion, because once you complete it, you drop out and you start again, right? You do another one, right? Yeah, I completed on more than one occasion. I must have had 300 CDs at one time, and I was never a collector of them. They just kept appearing. I was doing regular rock and roll radio DJ stuff at the time, so it kind of made sense that it was happening, but it was just the thing. And just yesterday I was over at the old house, and there's still a bunch of my stuff in the garage there. The kids live there, and there was a big old tower. it's just full of CDs. Oh wow! I didn't like Foreigner records. It's a bunch of greatest hits and stuff like that, And I thought, oh wow! I had a bunch of comedy stuff, a bunch of Carlin. Didn't even remember I had that stuff. Just saying, oh wow, that whole rack is just full of. Oh, I should be listening to that.
I still have in my truck. I still have my big book of CDs. Remember the books? I'm sorry, you can get the book, and it's stuffed full of CDs. In fact, some of them are double stuffed because I ran out of slots, and that's how I listen to music in my truck. Man, I plug a CD in. Well, I don't have a connection into my truck. I can't do it otherwise. So, and I don't really want to add electronics to it.
You need CarPlay, man, or what's it, Android, whatever it is.
I am 100% great with my CDs.
I've always been the audiophile type, so I always kept up with the technology, but minimally. I actually do have a touch screen, and I can hook my computer, my personal tracking device. People call them phones. I can hook that to my, listen to whatever. And
your cell flock.
What's that?
Your cell flock.
Myself. Yeah. Oh gosh, isn't that such a silly conversation? How many times? Come on, give me a guess, both of you. Just throw a number at me. In just the last week, you've seen some jackass say, "Well, you carry your phone around with you. It's the same thing."
Right. Yeah. No. It's an interesting world we live in nowadays. You
can opt out of that program completely, though. It's possible.
Right? Sure, of course you can. You can opt out of everything government related. No, it's just one of those things that gets me, right. That there's not an obvious understanding of the difference between these things. I keep trying to explain to people is there's an obvious intent difference. Clearly, the intent of what my phone does and why the phone company does it, barring any other explanations or reasons, assumptions about why they do it, is so that I can better use the device, so that I can track myself and my usage, and I can track my family, and I know where all my family is all the time because we have a device, we have a app on our phone, and I know where they are all the time, and it's a great thing. But I wouldn't want anybody else to know that information. Nobody else needs to know that information. And if they're just collecting it out there on the street on all of us, it was some stupid number. I wish I had grabbed it. It was a big number about the data, the amount of data that they're crunching
Oh, yeah.
Even when they only keep it for 30 days or something, supposedly.
That's such BS.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry. The default on them is 30 days. That can be changed shorter or longer, and that's only their system. Exports from their system, we don't know how long. And the simple fact of the matter is governments, whether that be local police department or federal or anything in between, cannot do this. And that's why this private company sets it up, and then they just buy data, which they are not disallowed from doing, which is a definitive loophole, and it's absolutely unconstitutional and illegal, from both the 4A and the 5A standpoint, right? And so, at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter, right? Government's mandate is not to keep us safe, right? It's to keep us safe from them. Their mandate is really to protect our rights against encroachment by them. So I don't know. That's a topic that we could probably spend on 2 hours on a single show, but
I did find it interesting that I was doing a little analysis on one of our podcasts, and I ran the transcript through there, and it did not like the fact that we mentioned, even jokingly, that perhaps there was about $800 in recyclable metals inside a flock camera. They just did not like that at all.
That's nice. We'll see if anything comes of it again. Not that anybody said anything.
Across multiple models, it said that. You probably need to cut that segment. I'm like,
I saw, what was it? Oh, somebody's making crow bird feeders that look like them,
dude,
so that the
righteous,
crows will get used to them and try to
righteous.
peck them and nest them and stuff. Yeah,
That's
Yep.
great.
that's a good one. Yeah, I like
That
that
is.
one.
That right there is my kind of civil disobedience. You know what I mean?
I did see somebody was printing up like little hats that fit right on the lens thing. Like you can, you're not damaging it, you're not vandalizing it, you're just giving it some formal wear.
Yeah, decoration.
Some formal wear. Here's your little top hat, guy.
It's good that people are thinking along those lines, because it's one thing to go out there and cut them down and destroy them, but it's another to just constantly make it so that they have to go back out there and deal with the thing. Go wipe off the lens or remove a hat or something like that. It's no big deal. It doesn't damage it. Nobody's hurt. You really can't claim that anybody's damaging public property. It seems to me like free speech protest maximized.
Yeah, you got the one guy, I think in Florida, right? He's sitting out there with the protest sign, and it's just the sign is like on this really tall pole, and it's right in front of the camera. I'm like, dude, I am in for that.
I've seen a couple of guys cutting them down. I see the poles. Nice clean cuts. That's nice. I was one guy in particular, I think, and I thought I saw something about a rogue cop too, former cop. It was messing them up. I don't know what it was. I didn't follow the link, but
yeah, there's been a lot of them right now. I mean, there are towns, right now they're basically saying, yeah, we're gonna stop because the cost of replacing them is getting burdensome. Good.
I thought they were privately owned. Does the taxpayer have to pay for that?
Well, it's a private company, but the city contracts with them for their data, right? So, but they won't replace the cameras for free. They were in the beginning, and then all of a sudden they started getting bills because people were dismantling their surveillance grid, and they said, okay, we're updating our stuff, and now you have to pay to replace the camera. And that's where that came from. So, while I'm not big on destruction of property, and I don't necessarily agree with that as a personal thing for me, at the end of the day, man, keep doing it, please. I really hope that it becomes so burdensome on all of these entities that they stop and not go to another provider, but literally just stop. Like, realize this is wrong. We shouldn't be doing this. This is obviously a line that we've crossed. I don't know.
I did notice these sheriffs, at least here in Florida, they're trying to push forward these agenda. Like they busted some kind of guy that was doing something. He had a gun, and if we didn't have these cameras, we wouldn't have had to. We wouldn't have been able to find this guy. They're just pushing it hard. If we didn't have them, this guy might.
It's such a false narrative too, and we could ask. What's the news lady? How effective cameras are. I mean, they got the guy right on the camera, and they still took the lady, and they don't know where she's at, and it's been months and months and months.
That Nancy Guthrie? Is that
Guthrie.
Yeah.
That's it. I was trying to remember the name. Yeah, Nancy Guthrie. Ask her if camera surveillance works real well or not, and if it's meant to help, as they say. That's one of the things the Florida sheriffs were pushing. Is that one guy in particular that's always telling people to shoot criminals and stuff if they break
that's
into their
exactly
home,
the guy that I saw today.
yeah. No, it's which is reasonably potentially a good solution to people breaking into your home, possibly, maybe. It's certainly an option, and I don't disagree with it, but they've been pushing this narrative that they'll find people, they'll find missing people. And here in Shawnee County, Topeka, Kansas, we have one of these systems. I don't know if it's a flock system. I've never looked into it specifically. I've been talking about it for longer than I've known the word flock. So whatever. It's supposed to be this grid, and there's a dude, sitting at a desk somewhere, just like you see in this information center with all these friggin' screens around him. And there's people watching all these different cameras and data being observed and in real time and by the AI. I assume most of it's done by AI now, but up to the point that AI started taking these things over, that's one of the things that we need to talk about. The AI thing, and maybe we said intellectual property too, right? That came up. That was one we named. I think we can probably fit all those into one little conversation. But they've had this stuff around here in Shawnee County, Kansas, for a while, and just last year, some dude wandered off, and it was like easily recognizable, and everybody's ring cams had for wherever he was and all that, but none of those other cameras produced any data, and it was a year later before somebody finally found the remains. And so if they're there for us, then how come we can't keep some person like this, a person who is in danger, not all there or whatever, from wandering off and disappearing for a year, and nobody knows where they went?
Honestly, I saw someone at a town hall or something, a city council meeting, reading off a thing, and basically just flipped the script and said, we're instituting these cameras as private citizens, and we'll be placing them in front of the city police, the courthouses, in front of your home. We're going to try and monitor, all of the public entities and their goings on and where they go and who they associate with, and all of this stuff. And it was pretty stark and telling, because everyone got real quiet, like, oh, you can't do that to us. Like, as a citizen, go try and do that with a public entity. You'll end up in cuffs. They'll be like, you're stalking me, period. There's no difference here, And they like to say that, okay, and this is true, right? If you're in public, you have no reasonable right to privacy where you're at. If someone is filming and you go by that camera, then yes, you're on that camera. And they like to say, oh, well, there's the precedent, right? And it's like, yeah, no, except if I set up cameras everywhere so that I could track and trace every one of your movements, and then associate with the people in the vehicle with you and who those people associate with, and look at all their movements and where they intertwine and everything else, that's called stalking or gang stalking or harassment, or maybe even something worse, right? And you would be hooked up and punished for that, right? But that's exactly what the system is. It's not that you have no reasonable expectation of privacy in public. That's really the truth. If you're out there, you shouldn't. But at the same time, you can have a reasonable expectation that you are not being tracked, traced, algorithmically scored, and in a database that makes that searchable and ties it into your acquaintances, etc. Right? That's a whole different level. That's not what we're talking about here, right? It's a completely different thing, and that is a surveillance grid, and that's not legal.
It's
You can't
George
set up
Orwell finally realized is what
right.
that is.
1984 was a warning, not an instruction
Not
manual.
instructions. They took it as instructions and they set it up and they finally figured out how to do it, or the technology finally ultimately came along for them to be able to do it. And so that leads into the AI and the data centers, because supposedly the data centers are for the AI, and the AI is ripping off the IP, and the IP is driving me insane. And I don't know. There's a long chain of things that are going on here, and so I'm going to try to tie them all together, and we'll see if we can fit a few more things in here in the last 10 minutes we have. Okay, so intellectual property, more than one thing. It's not just thoughts in somebody's idea, right? It's these digital properties. It's these things that exist in computers and spaces where they can be copied and not taken from somebody. So what we need to fall back on as reasonable people is the recognition of other people's property, regardless of whether we believe that that property is a valid piece of property or not. We recognize that it's not mine, it's not yours, and so property is really easy, right? It's everything that isn't mine, and only the things that are mine are mine. And so if somebody claims IP, you don't copy their stuff if you respect them and you want them to be credited with. And so the simple things, right? Those are all really simple and easy. So the question then becomes of theft. Did somebody steal something from somebody? Well, if somebody steals something from him, even if it's a digital file, that can be proven. Property would have to be breached. And while servers are digital space, it's still property, and it's a property that is not accessible. They purposely go out of their way to secure it and protect it from other people. So if you breach a server for say to take something from somebody, that's theft. You could prove it. You can show them breaking and entering into your space and them taking what they couldn't have otherwise have had, regardless of what the property is. And I think this is what's important when it comes to deciding these things, because then we don't have to worry about what that guy thinks property is, or what that guy thinks his thoughts are worth, or whatever. There's a crime. There's there's something that you can follow. A guy set out to take something from somebody and deprive them from it, even if it's just the secrecy of it because it only existed in that space. Or they took it and they want to copy it and they want to spread it around and they want to try to make money on it. And these are all things that could be proven, right? So the bigger question then is the AI and the technology copying these things. And we heard the thing the other day about the books, right? And the books being destroyed, and they were copied and trained the AI to read these things. And so, all right, so we already understand the property part of this, which is that it's their property. They bought it. They can dispose of it any way they want to. And so then the question is, again, if we're talking about sort of legal matter and the law, not legalese, of proving that somebody violated you, right? It's intent. You take the actors and you put their intent on trial, and their intent wasn't to harm the creators. It wasn't to copy the work and reprint it and put it out there. It was to train this computer to learn how to read. It just used those books to do it with, and unless and until something other than that is proven, some other intent is proven than that, then we, as reasonable people, that's where we have to rest on it. And then real quick, and then I'll let you guys get in here and comment on this. So the AI centers, we're being told that the AI needs these centers. My using AI to create some images or to create a new database for my computer or whatever, that we need all these data centers for this AI. Well, I tell you, these large language models, you have one on your phone. There's one on your phone. It's a large language model. It may not be as large as some of them, but every time you type in your phone, it does predictive text that's basically the exact same thing. So obviously we don't need large data centers to do that. It can be done on your own computer in your own home. It can be done on your phone. So then what are the data centers for? Bot cameras to process a day. The long conversation, the government is, I went and did the numbers. The government is adopting at 3 times the rate as anybody else. The use of AI, they're trying to automate the process of robbing, caging, and murdering the rest of us with as few people as they possibly can. That was my long rant. So, Havok.
Yeah, if you look back in time, right, there was a big hullabaloo around I want to say it was the mid '90s or something with the carnivore system, and it was discovered that hey, these guys, the NSA, they've got this huge data center, and the FBI's part of this whole thing. I believe the FBI. I could be wrong on that one, but they're basically just horking up all this call data, right? And obviously that translated into later on horking up all the internet data. And one of the only things that made that something that was kind of like, okay, like it's not okay, and you shouldn't be doing this, is that they could not successfully comb through all of that data and make any sense of it, right? Because it's just too much data. Well, now you've got AI. And so now that data is accessible, it's searchable, it's able to connect points together and give you a map of stuff that you never would have been able to come up with without teams of people working for years just for one of those little maps for a person and their acquaintances and all this stuff. Now it's just a front end screen. You type it in, and 2 seconds later, you've got that map in your face. And that's what, if you look at why all these big data centers, sure, there's a commercial aspect of this, right? You're training on books, you're training on, material out there, you're training on, parts manuals, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And there's that consumer side of it. But I would posit that the need for as many large data centers as we're seeing now is really to hork up that data that's been collected over decades and decades illegally, and make sense of it in a programmatic way. And that to me is the scary part, right? Because that's where, it just becomes, someone's search that get you in trouble. Yeah, I don't remember who it was, but there's a gentleman out there that said this a long time ago, and he said basically every single American commits at least 3 felonies per day. Well, now this isn't a searchable thing. Like you may have inadvertently done something that was wrong, and you just didn't even know about it. Well, and if they want to get you now, they just felony, get them. That's not freedom, and that's not liberty. That's not safety either. If you think about it, this is how tyranny creeps in. This is how things like the COVID lockdowns become nightmarish. You think that was bad? No. Implement this control grid, and that right there becomes nightmarish.
LX, last thought.
Maybe they're not data centers. Maybe they're just manufacturing facilities so they can make and deploy the killer T-800s when the time comes.
Yeah,
true.
And that's a very good possibility. They got to build those things somewhere.
What was that video that you told me about, Havok, with the little drone things, the killer drones?
Slaughter bots.
Slaughter bots. That's it.
If you ever want something that'll scare the absolute crud out of you, go watch. It's like a 4-minute video. You can find it on YouTube. Just type in slaughter bots, and that's weird. We are there. This is not like a game anymore. This isn't like and if you do watch it, please watch to the end, because there's a professor on there that was trying to warn people about this impending thing, and realize that there are people out there that are very concerned about that.
They should be. I've been telling everybody all along that it's not the AI, it's not the technology, it's not these tools we have to worry about. It's the people behind them. They're the scary ones. Thank you guys so much for joining me. Space Tomatoes Podcast on YouTube, Space Tomatoes PC on X, and everywhere. And you can find them with me on towardanarchy.com. I'll have all those links for you. It's episode 2629. Thank you guys so much for hanging out. We'll have to do it again real soon.
Absolutely. It was a pleasure.
Take care, and we'll catch up with the rest of you later.
You're listening to Toward Anarchy on the Republic Broadcasting Network.